Well,
The
thank you
real life
everyone
where the
for
rubber
joining
meets the
us.
road.
Yeah. Yeah, where the rubber hits the road. That's where we are today.
Today was
Because
a
you definitely, had to reset a couple times. And here we are. We're starting the day with thankfulness, engaging Jesus. A couple things we're thankful for, a couple joy verses, and then we've added these statements. I am responsible and
strong and capable.
I am strong and capable. And so what does that mean? If I'm
Yeah.
responsible, so no matter what comes at me, the beginning of every day, I've already made the decision. I am owning my actions. And so throughout the day, I'm owning my reactions, my attitude, and not going to blame. Because when I go into blame, I'm giving up my control. So responsibility actually gives us power. I,
To be able to give a response. And I want to encourage you that I normally am a very joyful person, and today
mm, it's kind of hard.
and the reset, it took a long time for the reset to take. Dane had to try with me like 2 or 3 times, and I had to try with myself
Mhm,
about 5, 6 times. And sometimes that may happen. Stick with it. Stick with it. And what helped me overcome was I realized, oh, this morning I didn't add the I am responsible and I am strong and capable. And after attempting to reset, I added that. And when I did add those two I am statements, that brought the shift. So,
yeah, pulling
um,
back from the negative thoughts, that can be really hard. Um, yeah, with God, and yeah, this is real maturity, right? I mean,
yeah,
wow, sometimes it's really hard. I mean, the world has to be right. And man, you have to waiting for the world to be right. I mean,
right.
it's just not going to happen,
And
right?
there are people who will say, well, I can't deny that this is what happened to me because I faced some experiences today that nearly threw me for a loop. And you have to choose even when things happen.
Hmm.
You have your will do best with what I have and what happens and
Hmm.
face it with courage. And even if you feel tired, uh, tell yourself that the joy of the Lord is your strength, and that makes
Hmm.
you response able and cape able.
And being capable seems like a little thing, but what I'm really saying is I am adequate. I'm adequate. Well, why am I adequate? I am the image of God. I have hooked up with him right away, uh, and I've received my strength. I can meet whatever comes with God.
Yeah,
And so saying that and really firmly sowing that seed every day in ourselves with consistency.
yeah. And I want to say that I've always been the kind of person who I was
Yeah.
born ready. I was born for this. There's nothing that you could bring. Today wasn't one of those days.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't have those days often.
Right.
And this information in this challenge, these instructions, that is what I went to. So, guys, I'm telling you, I really think, honey, now that I am processing, that this is happening for a reason, so that I can be your example. For those who haven't tried it yet, or those who are watching the replay of this and some other guys, I have literally had to do this today, and it works. It
Yeah.
worked.
And right. I mean, as the great life coaches say, there are no failures, right? We can look at something and say, oh, I blew it. No, no. We, because we have this mindset, we look at so-called failures as lessons, right? Lessons to grow from. And I mean, with everything in life, it's so easy to just say, I'm going to wait for the right day and not have that courage, like starting this ministry. I mean, I've been waiting a long, long time, waiting for the perfect time. There is no perfect timing, right?
Right.
It's well, hmm, time to just believe in God, be obedient, step out in faith, and understand. Of course, we're capable, right? We're adequate. it's an important thing to tell ourselves every single day.
Yes, and imagine the place of strength that you would come to if you did that. And I just want to say for the person who is normally that way, but you wake up one day in a funk,
Hmm.
this works on the day that you wake up in a funk. I haven't had one of those things since I was a teenager. And what was going on today? But this, I can testify that this works even on the day that you're in a funk. Don't allow that to remain.
Hmm.
Don't allow that to say, oh, it's just a today thing.
It's let it go
Neither
for a
give peace
week,
to
let
the
it go
enemy.
for a month.
Yeah, don't let that even go for a day. Don't even let that go for a minute. And that's why community is important too, because I had Dane and he was encouraging me. Now I'd been struggling with this all day and trying to do it on my own. But I must say that when I was able to share with him, because this we realized that this was brewing since yesterday, some things that happened yesterday, and I realized I didn't share it then because I wanted to be conscious of the words that I said, so I didn't share. But even from yesterday, this funk was brewing, and then it some other things happened today, and it was like full-fledged. I was like, who is this person? You know?
Yeah.
And I want to say that being in community matters because having him there to help me through, I was able to break through faster than when I was handling it on my own.
Right. And so success is not defined by our circumstances. A lot of times we think that, am I in the right, I'm successful, everything's right around me. No, it's how I respond to those circumstances,
Right.
right?
But
It's what I do.
and I want to make a plug for community here.
Yes.
I want to make a plug that in case you have no one, guys, we know what it feels like to
Mhm.
have no one. I mean, we're right here, right now, we're off the script. Uh, but in case you feel as though there's nobody there, nobody cares, then perhaps we might be a refuge for you. Perhaps this is a place where you could find uh, some wholeness, some healing. I mean, the tribe, everything in the tribal system that you need, right? um, Jesus provides it all, but perhaps you could benefit from being in relationship with us. That's all
Mhm.
we wanted to share there. Okay, so
All right.
mm,
So you want to say a little bit more about life culture? So we're doing this 21-day launch challenge, and it's a lot, right? Right up front, it's getting us out of our comfort zones and getting more accustomed to working together like this, and teaching practical Christianity and looking at joy heroes. I mean, that's what we're doing these 21
mhm,
days. But then we're going to be doing like Saturday morning meetings. You
mhm,
could call them services. We'll add some music
right.
and continue the teaching.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I hope we see a lot of you there. I mean, both in person and online. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
be both.
Mm-hmm. And well, I'll talk about life culture. We are a family, which is
Life
why
culture
life culture
family.
family, because God's word says that He puts the solitary in families, and we want to be a safe place in terms of family. We know that the enemy was very strategic when he began the war against the family, starting with fatherhood. And if you look at the modern media, it started with when you think about family ties, just to do a
Mhm.
quick little, you know, family ties, even two silver spoons together, even in Black culture, it was different strokes. And I don't know if you remember the one with Mr. Drummond, who was a white man who adopted two black boys. I can't remember the name of that one, but all these family shows and family where the father was a good, funny sometimes character, but at the end of every story there would be like a moral to the story, the Brady Bunch and all of those. And we see the move in the culture to denigrating the father and denigrating the role of the father. We see things like Love and Marriage, uh, Two and a Half Men, and other disparaging things in the culture. That was a signal of the onslaught against fatherhood. and then soon followed motherhood through the feminist movement and the um, all the other things that happened there. And as a result, children lives hung in the balance. And if you came up in any of those times, and for some people, the biggest curse word, the F word, is family.
Mhm.
And we understand that, and we are here to maybe redeem. We're called to the family area of influence, and we're not saying we're perfect, but we are saying that God has invited us to grow a heart tree. Isn't that a
That's
beautiful little
beautiful.
image? I never saw that one before. It's like, oh, look, a little heart on the tree.
In the cold.
So never saw this, and for him to say that, and it's out in the cold, and they just want to go around and put a little blanket around it, brush off some of the snow. So, that is kind of who we are, and that is our heart
Mhm.
with regard to this. Yeah.
Okay. And then you have a slide that says intended outcome
Yeah.
just ahead.
Yes.
Hmm.
This brings us to Dane's daily
Oh,
etymology.
that's
So
what you meant?
anytime, yeah, anytime you're talking about success, right? So anytime you see a slide like that, know that, and you're like, oh, where is this going? This is Dane's daily etymology that we're
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah, daily etymology. So we've added this segment for the 21 days. So we're talking about the history of words, the history of the origin and evolution of words. And we've been talking about success. And last night we saw that success entered the English language in the 1530s. So it's only 500 years old. Uh, so when it was first introduced, though, it meant just it had a neutral meaning. It meant outcome, termination, it's done. But then in the 1580s, suddenly it took a positive take, like prosperity or victory, so a favorable outcome. And so what happened was the old Anglo-Saxon word from about 1,000 years ago uh, for success was speed. Strangely enough,
That you did
speed.
last night.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we were talking about that. So, speed had the idea of victory or prosperity. And so finally in the 1580s, success takes on that particular meaning. So if you look at the Oxford English Dictionary, which is wonderful, you see that the earliest evidence for the word successful, where you add full to it, is from 1588. So languages evolve very quickly and
Hmm.
change very quickly. So
Hmm.
our idea of being successful uh, comes from Anthony Munday. Um, so you take the noun success, you add the suffix full, and you have successful. So that's interesting in 1580s. Uh, so basically, I just wanted to throw that in for this evening, since we're talking so much about joy, calm delight, joie, which entered, as we keep saying, the English language in the 14th century, well, 13th and 14th centuries, and success. So joy and success
Hmm.
are themes here.
Yes, joy and success. And you spoke about that intended outcome that you spoke about that yesterday too, that it had to do with getting to an intended good outcome, a good favorable result. And we want to say that with joy on your side, your intended outcome isn't just ahead, it is here.
And
Hmm.
now you're taking us to your daily tabernacle visit.
Yeah. We are going to the tabernacle here for just a minute.
So the Thanksgiving, hopefully you all, spent some time, you know, in your quiet time as you first awoke with Thanksgiving in your hearts and you entered the gates. You got your foot in the right door, right?
Right.
So we're walking in toward the inner court in the
Mhm.
Holy of Holies. But you
Yeah,
you don't even get in the neighborhood without Thanksgiving, right?
that's right. That's right. And I mean, today I had done the Thanksgiving, I had done the praise, and I think that being at the laver kind of tripped me up a little bit. And
So you'll have to back
then
up and explain that. Yeah.
yeah, so remember we said that you enter into the courts with thanksgiving. I hope you can see my cursor. And then you enter in his courts with praise. You enter the gate with thanksgiving, you enter the court with praise, you bring a sacrifice of praise. I mean, you burn up anything, you repent, anything that needs to be taken care of, you kind of do that. And then you come to the labor where you see yourself. And I think that today I saw some things I didn't like.
Mm.
You see yourself, that self-awareness comes. And it wasn't anything to repent of. It wasn't a sin thing. It was a, oh, this is where you are thing. And I think that I wasn't quite prepared or liked what I saw. And then when you go in here now, you have the showbread. So ideally, this is where the place of this is a face. I'm down in the second picture here where they have the showbread. That is the face, the
And that was weird.
yeah.
It was a solar flare. I'm not sure. Who knows?
All right. So yeah, we'll back up a little bit and this might be more important than we thought. Right. So we are here now and we are observing what happens in the past the gates of Thanksgiving into the court of praise. And now you're at the laver where you have some self-awareness now. You can reflect, you can see yourself. And so now you enter the holy place. And this is what it looks like in this first part. First, you have the table of shewbread, and we kind of discussed that the priest was only getting a little piece of bread and they had to drink it with some wine, right? So it was like communion size. And we were talking about the possibility that that would fill them up with some things, but maybe communion has greater attributes than, you know, than we always think about. And then yesterday we spoke about the candlestick, the menorah, which you had to service this every morning and every night. And this was the light, the joy of the Lord, and so on that has to be tended. Today, we're going to talk about this last piece, the third piece in this area, and this is what you see on the side enlarged over here. This is the altar of incense, and in this picture below, you can see the incense rising. And it was very interesting, the things that it was comprised of, because some were sweet and one of them was very bitter and it smelled a little bitter and rambunctious on its own. But when it was put with the other sweet spices, it made the smell of it, the incense and the sweet calamus and all the other things, it made them last longer, more potent and more complex. So they didn't just smell sickly sweet. You know, you smell some things and it's just so simply sweet that it's sickly sweet. When you added this particular thing, Gaburnum, I think it was, it changed the potency and the um, complexity of the offering. And, we could really talk about the bitter things in our lives that change the potency and the complexity of the offering. And here the offering, this incense was really represents prayer. It represents prayer of the believer. And it was the thing that was closest to the Holy of Holies. It was the closest thing to the veil. And it was the last piece that you would come to. And I want to ask you and invite you to let your prayer be sincere before the Lord with the things that are difficult or hard also mixed in there, because that is a sweet smelling savor unto the Lord. This mixture was so potent and important to the Lord that anybody who made this mixture, it was equal parts of everything. Anybody who made this mixture, the penalty was death. This was
Mhm.
only for the Lord. And so the trials and the things that you go through, bring them too, along with all the things you're giving thanks for. Let that be your sweet smelling savor to the Lord. And with God, there's always a divine exchange. You give all those things to Him, and He will give you joy as a result. I think that
Hmm.
the things that I think that even today, as I reflect on what happened today, there were some things that something happened yesterday, two things that happened today, two social things I had to deal with. And then the last social setting we were in this evening, just a few minutes before this program started, I feel as though that was God's divine reward and his
Mm,
joy and his recompense for the earlier things that I struggled with in social settings today. This was like a complete opposite divine,
mhm.
you know,
You came with some oil, some anointing, some power prayer in the right situation for a dear family member.
and that was a balm to me for what had
Mhm.
happened yesterday and today. So we could attest that this stuff works, guys. And today was like an object lesson for me in these regards. So we'll move on. And I hope that this is making sense to you because we just to go back one minute, just the whole point of this whole thing is we want to get back here to the power, right? The ability to get results. How does this whole tabernacle protocol thing bring us to power? And mixing the prayer with it's sweet and the bitter stuff that stabilizes it, makes it potent, and makes it complex. We are able to very soon after this is the Holy of Holies, and that is where we access the power.
Yeah, well, and I'm pretty excited about that. I remember that slide you showed last week, where you had the spectrum. And at the very top, I really had my eyes on the bliss and the enlightenment,
Right,
the power
right.
and a lot more.
Right, and I'll probably use that slide tomorrow then because they call it bliss and enlightenment because it's the top of the human frequency chart. But it goes in this order: love, joy, peace. I don't think that they know what comes after, but we know what comes after
Mhm.
because the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace,
Peace,
patience, kindness,
kindness,
goodness,
goodness,
faithfulness,
faithfulness,
gentleness,
gentleness,
and
and
self-control.
self-control.
Out of the nine, they only are so far able to identify the first three. So where man ends or begins to their end, which is like from the frequency of love, that's where God begins. Man's highest is like God's lowest.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that's where we want to get to. And joy is up there. Joy is up there. So we really are interested in you getting there.
All right. So let's go to Lincoln. I mean, Abraham Lincoln. What a great man, one of the most influential people in history. And we know that he played the most pivotal role in saving our nation during the Civil War. And you look back on his life, and like his mother died when
He
he
was
was
nine.
9, and then his father couldn't take it and just disappeared for 6 months. And he comes back with another woman, but that woman became mama. And you'll be talking about this then, I guess, in our family VIP. Uh, but I mean, the loss of children, the loss of
Sister.
his first love. I mean, it. They say that this would have really.
My heart was going kind of, my heart can't take anymore. And I'm just hearing, I'm just discovering the story and my heart can't take anymore. My
I mean, we
goodness.
think about his greatness and how witty he was. What a great debater, what a great orator he was.
And they
And
say that he got that from the mom, the
from
stepmother.
the stepmother,
Yeah.
yeah. See, he's 6'4". He's really impressive man. I mean, a great thinker, a great reader, even though he grew up on a farm in Indiana and his father made him work the fields. I mean, he was basically having to do his reading on his own.
Yep.
And and so what happened? He was still able to carry this great wit and this great mind, and it just made him compassionate. And I guess he had to go through that to lead us through that difficult time because wow, our nation was I mean, it was in the balance at the
Hmm.
time. And early in his political career, he was already delivering lectures against slavery, and he became famous, put in the national spotlight because of the Lincoln Douglas debate. So he was debating Stephen Douglas running for senator of Illinois, and they had 7 debates. And he said, "Our nation can't survive. We won't survive as a union dedicated to liberty, divided, and slavery is going to have to go." And he lost that race, which is crazy. Stephen Douglas wanted to let, the states decide, was willing to allow the institution of slavery.
Mhm.
Wow. So we'll get back to him in just a second. So talking about a house divided, let's go to the Bible verse for tonight. Amber?
Okay, so we start with Mark 3:25. And if a house is divided against itself, that house will not be able to stand. And it kind of says the same thing 3 times. If a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if a household is divided and pulls apart, it will collapse.
Yes, it will
And of
collapse.
course, that comes from his famous, um, one of his famous speeches.
Yes, yes. Um, so we know that even though he lost, I mean the real reason he even got in that race, he'd been out of politics for quite some time. He decided, I can't let our nation go this way. I mean, the new states were having referendums whether or not to accept slavery. And some people were just willing to let the states decide, and it was getting ugly. People were dying, and he decided, I have to get into this race. I have to be in national politics. And, he won the popular vote against Douglas, but they
Yes.
had an electoral system there. And so he lost the election and he was really hurt, but then he ran for president. And as we know, he won the 1860 election. So he was going to be president. 1861, and then the southern states, they start seceding. And there were grim moments. There were grim moments. I mean, if the English or the French or both had come in on the side of the Confederacy, it might have been over, right? But he did something remarkable, which we know, the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. So he freed the slaves in the southern states. Now, I gave you a map. Do you have that here?
Absolutely.
Let's take a look at this. Oh, some other great pictures, iconic pictures. So when you look at this map, you can see that there are states, the purple, the states that did not leave the Union, but they were still slave states.
Yeah, you can
And
see
then
the
there were
key.
the green, you have the southern states, and
Those
then
were,
right above those are the first to go, and then right above them you have the other Confederate states like Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Arkansas. Um, but then you, of course, have the Union. And so what happened is in the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863, he frees the slaves in the southern states. Now, the English, they'd already outlawed slavery, right? And so there was no way they were morally put in a position where they could not enter the war. They could not fight with the Confederacy. I mean, it was a brilliant move, but this was in his heart. This was in his heart. This he did have a joy of the Lord that sustained him through all this loss. And I mean, he led the Union to victory. 1865 leads the Union to victory, reunites the states, and then leads the passage of the 13th Amendment. So the banning in our Constitution of slavery. That is incredible. Were there a few more points that you saw that you wanted to bring out here about his life? I
no,
mean,
I think I was just taken by the amount of loss and tragedy that framed this man's. I feel as though the story that the story that you tell is the story that will be told. So be careful how you frame it.
mhm.
They said that he barely spoke about his sister and the loss of her. And uh she was a person who in those 6 months when their dad left, they were just living off of the berries and stuff that his mom had preserved when she was alive. They were living on barely nothing.
Mhm.
It is said that well, I'll talk about this more in the deep dive for family, but um, when you hear about this great man, that's not
Mhm.
the first thing we hear about.
Mhm.
That's not the reason why we consider him a great man. I mean, you have to like dig to find this stuff. You have to go there to find this stuff. What comes first? What's most important? What is first of mind is the great uh leadership and the great unity, the unifying force that he was. And I kind of want to encourage you that no matter what you're going through,
Mhm.
that is not what is defining your story. It is your legacy. It is your destiny that Dane is asking you to think about. What is your legacy and your destiny? What is that thing to think about? And
Mm.
he kept his eye on that,
Yeah.
regardless of what happened.
It was just so compassionate. I mean, the casualty reports were coming in. He had to see those daily. And I mean, it was ripping him apart. And he was willing to tear up, some pieces of the Constitution, suspend some habeas corpus, you know, uh, whatever it took, maybe do some really heavy arm twisting to get the votes he wanted. Quite a powerful character, but there were 4 million slaves who were freed. And then of course the death, the carnage, the 600,000. We think 1 million people altogether died because of this war. I mean, the bloodiest thing the United States has ever gone through, the biggest losses we've ever experienced. And then he was at his happiest when it ended. It was joy. I mean, he was like, he told his wife, here, hold on, Epi, hold on. My daughter wanted to, yeah, she looks beautiful. She dressed up for us. So he won re-election and he was celebrating. I mean, he told his wife, yeah, we're going to have to just be joyful now. And then he was
He
shot at
went
the
to a
Ford
comedy
Theater.
show. Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, we know. And then yeah, if only we had been able to see uh, his form of reconstruction because the states had to be reconstructed after that, and so he felt that you needed to be compassionate even to the losers. You couldn't punish them too heavily, even though the radical Republicans in the North, they really wanted to make them pay, and they got a lot of their way. I mean, it probably went too far, and so we'll never know what could have happened. But yeah, he was very conciliatory.
But what did happen was enough for us to be legally married today.
Yes, we're legally married. I mean, yeah, yeah, well, yeah. A lot of
Talk about the other
there are a lot of
things.
things going into that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, so we can talk about this Lincoln frequency, joy that trusts God's righteousness and creates unity through justice rather than division through compromise. So he wasn't willing to compromise. He could have had a fairly simple presidency and just, let the South, he could have let the South just secede and do nothing, but yeah, he inspired the country to fight for unity. And I mean, and he inspired those troops to come register. They were ready to fight. Yes, great man. Great story.
yeah.
For a man with all of that loss.
And yeah, so just talking about the loss really brings us to what this did for his brain. And the losses were great, and they started from early. And the scientific fact of it is that what kept him was this divine justice, this sense of divine justice and him being so centered in that, that it was hardwiring his brain,
Mhm.
that it was others, he was others focused. Not what I'm going through. What I'm going through is real and it's palpable, but it's what is the just and right thing for all. And we've been talking all week about the brain body benefits of having these foci or foci
Okay, it's good.
foci that are rooted and grounded in God's love and His joy. And we spoke about the increase of dopamine and serotonin for sustained motivation. But imagine a man for whom that motivation is every 2 or 3 years, someone else dies.
Mhm.
His 11-year-old son dies. His wife had a mental breakdown
Mm.
over this. He didn't have a mental breakdown. Think about the fortitude, the mental, emotional, spiritual fortitude of such a person. And so the brain science is that this sense of divine justice strengthens the anterior cingulate cortex for moral decision making and
Mhm.
activates the compassion networks for empathetic leadership. So they're both working at the same time. And
Mhm.
so Dane has kind of been pulling out that he was so compassionate, he was so compassionate, he was so
It's
compassionate.
empathetic.
Yeah, but that came from
Mm.
that moral decision making, that sense of decision making, that moral divine purpose that also was the thing that made him empathetic and compassionate. And so not just his mind, but his body was being biochemically prepared for the most difficult presidency
Mhm.
in American history, or maybe in history overall, because his joy, his ability to endure under pressure, that joy was programming the neurology for righteous strength and for healing grace, hence the great unifier that he was. So we want to say to you that when you anchor your day and your life and your joy in divine justice, rather than, it's my personal peace, I don't have to get involved.
Mm.
I mean, I used to say that certain things I don't need to get involved in. Every fight is not my fight, and that is true. But when you anchor your joy in God's divine justice rather than a personal peace on an issue, you're not just being spiritual, you're being neurologically wise and astute because that righteous focused joy that you have is preparing your brain and your body for leadership, moral leadership that can fight for truth under pressure while truly creating unity through grace.
Mm. Yeah, beautifully said. So here's your Lincoln inspired question, and I think we have a few minutes for everyone to write tonight. Um, yeah, it's 9:45. So here's your Lincoln inspired question for tonight. What house divided situation in your life needs healing? So what house divided situation in your life needs healing? And what would it look like to find Lincoln's joy in God's justice rather than personal peace starting today?
Hmm.
So he's sacrificed personal peace, yeah, for a great cause. So yeah, a house divided situation. What could that look like, huh? I mean, maybe in a relationship, house divided, family, workplace, community, a family situation where you're tempted to choose peace over truth, comfort over justice.
Hmm.
Yeah, we keep meeting people
Some
in these
things,
difficult
yeah,
circumstances.
things
Yeah.
come to mind. I think of marriage and the institution of marriage. A lot of families, that's a test that they are facing. How do you lovingly say, uh, and empathetically say your peace and have divine justice and show compassion and empathy at the same time.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So it's your turn. It's your turn to find that for you. So we're going to give you 5 minutes now of going to give you 5 minutes to just reflect on that for a moment,
Reflect on this teaching and
write down what that
yeah.
could be.
I mean, Lincoln, he could have avoided war by accepting slavery's continuation. I mean, yeah, imagine if we had had a president who did that. Hmm. I mean, talk about a man appointed in the right place at the right time in his season, a time, yeah, time such as this. We've seen that before.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So, guys, if we want to invite you to take out your pen and your paper and to just going to give you just a few moments with
Hmm.
some music, and you could scribe a little bit. And we will do it too.
Created an environment in which I could discover who I really am.
All right, that's we're going to pull it down. And we hope that there was a good little moment of reflection for you, asking some
Mhm.
serious questions. Yeah. So that brings us to the joy blurb for today.
Do you want to get any feedback?
Oh, sure.
Why don't we
If
do that? I'm just curious if anything came to mind for anybody. I was even thinking about something at work where it's so tempting to give up principles. An agreement had been made, and and someone decided to get really heated and get really ugly, and it would have been so easy just to say, okay, let them have their way, let them have their way, even though someone else would have been somewhat injured from that. And all parties were in a good faith agreement, and Yeah, it was important to stand ground and fight for the principle. Yeah, with moral conviction, and there are consequences for it, and it got ugly. I mean, we all see things like that. We all see things. I'm just wondering what others have seen or what they're thinking.
Would anybody like to share? Is there anyone who would like to share their takeaways or their point of view?
Yeah, this one is maybe a little more difficult, so I'm wondering, do we have a brave soul who
And you can write it in the chat.
Yeah.
This one is a little tentative. Um, and you know, uh, sometimes it's hard to, maybe you don't see outright a situation in your home, or maybe some people they have a situation that is very outright in their home, and it's not something that they want to share out loud, or this
Right,
is a
right.
public
Yeah,
part of the, it's
that's
being
true.
recorded, and so and we don't want you to expose yourself like that or anything, but if there was maybe something at work or something, that someone was seeing about where having a standing up for some justice, some divine justice would be good, then
Mhm.
you know, it really is so easy to roll over and say, well, that's what they want to do, that's how they want to do it. I don't want to get
Yeah,
involved, but
keep life uncomplicated. Look, life is already complicated, right? It's like, yeah,
it's not my fight. I don't need to bring this. I don't need to bring this forward. And some of these things could be hard to, bring out in the open. I'm thinking
yeah, that probably is. Maybe
that
we'll save that
that
for the VIP then.
maybe
And
be
yeah, good point. So let's look at Lincoln's joy success secret. It's called the Divine Justice Joy Practice. The Divine Justice Joy Practice. So it's find delight in God's righteousness over personal peace and let that justice create healing through truth rather than division through compromise. Like Lincoln fighting for unity based on freedom, let joy in divine justice create strength for what's right and grace for healing afterward.
hmm, interesting. Interesting.
And you'll read our daily joy blurb?
Yeah, that joy doesn't choose an easy peace.
Mhm.
It fights for righteous unity. I think of, even in the church, there are things that you could just say it's not my fight, that's how they want to do it. And you could choose an easy peace, but joy fights for righteous unity. Lincoln found greater delight in God's justice than political convenience, greater satisfaction in divine righteousness than personal comfort, and greater fulfillment in healing through truth than maintaining division through compromise. Your joy in God's justice creates leadership that unites through righteousness and heals through grace. True peace comes from justice, not from avoiding conflict.
Mhm.
I mean, all the places where we could, sometimes it's a wise strategy to not, I mean, choose your battles, but sometimes that's just a cop out. And we are required to face the music, as it were, and speak up. And sometimes that speaking up doesn't have to be confrontational. I remember there was this one time, this pastor we knew, he was a principal of a secondary school, of a high school, and someone in the academic world, in the education arena, started ill-speaking educators of faith.
Mhm.
And he had this moral dilemma, right? To choose an easy peace or to fight for something else. And he said that in that moment, he knew he had to fight because all the other believers who know he's a pastor is looking to see what this high
Mhm.
profile person would do in this. It's a national kind of consensus kind of thing. He just raised his hand and the person said, yes, Dr. So and so. He said, I am one of them. That ended the tirade, the barrage of all he said is, I am one of them. And it seems like, it's a perfect diplomatic answer. All the other Christians are like, ah, yes. And the person who was, perpetrating the injustice to be saying all these things that weren't true, they just kind of simmered down because you're not in a homogeneous audience that believes everything that you believe. I am one of them was enough to, and sometimes we think that fighting has to be confrontational. Fighting could be, I am one of them, you know.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Tonight is a tough one, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
it's a tough one. I mean, wow. So yeah, so tomorrow actually we're going to do Martin Luther. Last night we were on the Anabaptists and I'm a 16th century scholar, so that's a lot of fun for me to do the 16th century. We did the Anabaptists last night, and tomorrow we're going to the very start of the Reformation with Martin Luther. So he's the joyful reformer we'll be looking at. He challenged entire systems with God's joy. I mean, came to a new understanding of salvation. I mean, it really ran counter to the way he was raised, and we'll look into that. And so, what is your joy mission? What do you need to do,
Yeah,
Angela?
so we're challenging you to start every day in joy, which is calm delight. Now, this girl here, I would say that's a joyful look. Most people say that joy is happiness. No, no, no.
Mm-mm.
Joy is calm delight. You can lie down right there in your bed, have your notebook ready, and you could just sit up later and write. But we're challenging you to start your day in joy, in calm delight, in Him, in thankfulness. Write down two things you're thankful for. Read two joy verses. Continue with a big destiny goal that you can see yourself achieving. Write it down. Maybe not today, but it's something that's so deep in your heart that you could see it. Then reverse engineer. Write down one small, consistent daily habit that will help you get there. And I need to give you an update. I now have my big destiny goal I could see myself achieving. And I now have my one small, consistent daily habit that will help me get there. And it took me a few days to get that one that will work. I thought I had it yesterday. And then we realized there's a snag in that plan. I can't do that right now because of some situational logistics. But today, lying down in bed, I believe that I came up with a small, consistent daily habit.
And then you have two I
I
am
did do
statements.
my I am statements and it nearly tripped up my day. So say your two I am, not I believe. Oh my, who wrote
I
that?
am
I am. Yeah. I
responsible.
am responsible and I am
Strong
and
and capable.
capable. And then the question is, are your standards changing?
Right, right.
Mine are.
Standards are
The
not
list that
determined by,
changing.
yeah, what you're going for.
No,
It's for your
the
standards are
least that you
determined
will
for what
accept.
you're going to
Your
tolerate. What you
floor
tolerate,
that you can
defines your
tolerate.
standards. Yeah.
Yeah. For just using clothes, for example, I ironed something to wear this morning. Am I going to go in rumpled clothes or am I going to iron this piece? Am I going to fold the clothes? How long will I leave the dishes? That's house things, but it
Mhm.
could be in finances, it could be in your relationships, it could be in business protocols. Am I going to miss a day? Am I going to be on time? Am I going to make sure that I'm groomed a certain way every day? How am I going to, what is the minimum that I will accept?
Yeah.
How am I going to discipline my children or
Yeah, what did I used to accept? You know, I I never made my bed growing up. I just accepted it. It was like, I care about my environment. Now, I have a higher standard. So the important thing
I am not
is to
accepting a laundry
continue.
monster in
No
my
more
house.
laundry
No.
monster. Continue raising that standard,
Yep.
raising the floor. I mean, you can raise your ceiling too, all you want. Dream big, but yeah, think too about your floor.
And I'm finding that that gives you energy to dismantle the clutter monster or the laundry monster or the whatever the tax monster or whatever it
Yeah,
is
there's one of
that
those
you
out.
have to, or it might be a health monster. It might be we work with people who do dating. It might be the put yourself out there. It might be a social monster. There could be anything, but are your standards changing? Yeah.
All right. Well, Lord, thank you for this great lesson through Abraham Lincoln tonight and this challenging topic. And and again, touch everyone exactly where they need to be touched inside tonight. And and bless everyone who's come. We're so blessed to have them here with us. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So thank you
Amen.
all so much. Thank you. Thank you.